The third theme slash symbolism that we are looking at in this play is that of the conflict between the worldly powers and the spiritual powers. It forms the central conflict of the play, as you know, the conflict between King Henry II and Saint Thomas Becket, both of whom are representing the government, which is the worldly powers, which is the temporal powers, and the church, the Catholic Church, being represented by Becket, which is the spiritual center of in the earthly domain. So this conflict between worldly powers and spiritual powers is at the center of this particular play. Uh, what Beckett achieves is the Christian ideal of balance between these two powers when he submits himself radically to the will of God, as we have already discussed. What he manages to achieve is the ideal, the Christian ideal of how to balance worldly powers with spiritual powers, that the submission, the understanding that human beings have no control, no ability to determine the correct balance by giving oneself up to the will of God. That is when Beckett achieves the Christian ideal. The other characters, chorus knights and tempters, offer various other ways in which this balance works out. Balance between the worldly powers and spiritual powers work out in this particular play. Chorus, uh, the women of Canterbury who constitute the chorus always face the issue of the conflict between suffering and joy. The joy that marks the return of Beckett is an indication of how much they have to lose. So the fact that they have Beckett coming back to Canterbury to protect them, to lead them spiritually, is also working at the same time for them as a reminder for them that how much they have to lose. So suffering and joy is inseparable for them. So in joy, they find something that they have a potential to lose, and they are afraid of the suffering. They are aware, they know suffering. The only thing that they have known is suffering throughout their lives, but they are willing to continue to suffer in the known ways, so as to preserve their hope in form of Beckett. And knights offer a different kind of perspective. Knights represent the king himself, the monarchical powers, the temporal powers, as Beckett calls it, temporal, indicating both bound by time, something uh, that is bound by time, that is the earthly world, they are in the periphery of the wheel, they are not at the center, and also temporal in the sense as something that is fleeting, does not have a long shelf life. So the knights represent monarchical power, and they're completely unaware of the spiritual aspect of power at all, and they believe that the sole purpose of the church is to serve the will of the king. And it is in this from this belief that they believe Becket is a traitor to the king, and they are here to they come to execute uh, the traitor to the throne. Tempters offer a very interesting balance between worldly powers and spiritual powers. Each of them offers Beckett a different kind of choice. So the first tempter says that you can maintain your spiritual garbs. You can use spirituality as some kind of a decoration in the pursuit of all kinds of worldly powers and worldly lust and love and lust and everything youthful and worldly. You can enjoy them while having spirituality as some sort of an adornment. The second tempter uh, professes a complete abandonment of spiritual powers and says, "You submit entirely to the chancellor, to the king, and become the chancellor once again. You take up the worldly power, make maximum use of it, stand by the king, and rule the world with all the worldly powers, while rejecting spiritual powers completely." Third tempter of offers another kind of option, which is to use the spiritual powers in the same way as one would use worldly powers for temporal success, for temporal riches. The third tempter asks Becket to use the powers of the church in the service of the barons to overthrow the power of the king. And the fourth tempter, who is the unexpected visitor to Becket, offers a complete contrast to the second tempter, who asks for a complete rejection of spiritual powers. Fourth tempter asks Becket to reject worldly powers completely, which is something that he wanted, but in service of himself, in his own interests. What Becket achieves, Becket as an ideal Christian achieves, is a complete rejection of all these kind of balances, uh, that he decides that it is up to God, it is up to fate to understand, to know, because God, who is at the still center of the wheel of fate, knows what is best, and he submits himself completely, a radical submission to the will of God, which makes Becket the ideal Christian at the center of the play. What T.S. Eliot achieves through this play is to present this ideal, that a question that he keeps asking constantly throughout his poems, throughout his plays. What he is asking, the question that he keeps coming back to, is that of what is the purpose of human life. And here is the answer. Here is one of the answers that he finds in Christianity, the Christian ideal. Solution to that conundrum of human existence is to give up oneself to fate, give oneself up to the will of God, and that is the right thing to do. That is the purpose of human life, to serve the will of God. And this is one of the clear-cut solution that he is able to mm, to provide for a question that he wasn't even able to formulate in in one of his early poems, which is the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. I hope you have understood everything that has been discussed in this particular set of lectures. Thank you. For any more, if you want any clarifications on any of these topics, feel free to message me or email me, and we can have further discussions. I will post a couple of uh, quizzes on Google Classroom. Make sure that you answer all of them within the stipulated time. Uh, Good luck. Thank you.